So on this path we've been going through, starting with Atisha's, this based on this text of Atisha, he wants us to think about first, as a preliminary practice, to prime our minds ready to want to even practice. He gets us to think about the preciousness of this life, not to waste it. The action point from this is don't waste it. Then we enter into the first stages of the path where we think about impermanence. Buddha's got this extensive teachings on impermanence, but Atisha gets us particularly to think about the impermanence of the self, which means death. So it's not like it's impermanence, we'll get about impermanence by meditating on it, but his particular agenda is a wake-up call, to increase our wish not to waste this life. Then we move to the next step, which we talked about, thinking about the possibilities of a type of rebirth, and then simply wanting to not have a suffering rebirth, so thinking of the suffering of those types of rebirths, animals, spirits, souls. All these experiential states of being that are the result of one's own actions. No one sends us anywhere, no one turns us into a human, no one makes us an animal, we do it ourselves by our thoughts, which is the basis of karma. So then we increase our wish not to waste our life on this, and we think, well, whom can I turn to give me methods that I can use to avoid this kind of rebirth? Thank you very much. So we turn to the Buddha. We take refuge in the Buddha, his Dharma, the Sangha. We discussed that. And then we start to practice. We actually then put into practice the method that Buddha would suggest we practice, which is the method for ensuring that when we do die, we can be programmed to get another decent rebirth. So don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, don't this, don't that, which is what we're doing in our practice, regretting these 10 non-virtuous actions. This list of 10, like this checklist of 10 don'ts. Practical advice from the Buddha to stop doing in order to avoid future suffering rebirths. It's a very practical thing. Not like we think of it all in the West. Don't think like this, but very practical, taking Buddha's view of the world as our reference point. So we stop right there. We'd ensure we get nice human beings. In life after life, we just practice morality, nice rebirth. But you can do further. You can get out of samsara altogether. So we go to the more advanced level. We go to high school, the second scope. We start now to get to the root of the problems, which is the mind, the delusions. As we know from the extensive discussions we've had the last few days, Buddha's fundamental view, all of Buddha's practice is based upon this view, Buddha's findings about mind. It's not physical, doesn't come from mummy daddy, isn't given to us by a creator, and is a beginningless continuity of mental moments that has this amazing phenomenal potential to be free of the neuroses, which are the cause of suffering, and to be full of the goodness. Simply speaking, this is Buddha's fundamental point, his unique point. With all these delusions, ego grasping, the root delusion, the root of all the problems, the clinging to the self, the attachment to get what that self wants, the aversion when it doesn't, and all the other variations of the nonsense. All this stuff is adventitious, as they say. It does not belong in our mind. We do not need it. It's not at the core of our being. It's not integral to who we really are. Surprisingly, shockingly, because we assume it is. This is Buddha's point. So the work in the second scope, high school, being your own therapist, learning concentration techniques, learning Buddha's view of the mind and going deep, deep, deep inside, unraveling, unpacking, deconstructing, removing from the mind this nonsense. If we got graduated here, we'd achieve our own nirvana. Would be cool. Our own liberation. No need to be reborn. But we can do more. Because now we see everybody in the universe is in the same boat. We're all caught up in suffering, all caught up in karma and delusions, all suffering and thinking someone else causes it. No idea why. All going crazy, up this realm, down that realm, never ending, being reborn in samsara. So if we can't leave them behind, how can we leave them behind? When I know my suffering, I know their suffering. So I have to keep working for their sake. So we went through the 11 stages, these 11 techniques, in this particular package of teachings that culminate in Buddha's teaching. Starting with equanimity, this recognition that all beings want to be happy and don't want to suffer. Enemy, friend, stranger are in reality the same from this perspective, our foundation. Then we think of how all beings have been our mother. Then we think of the kindness of the mother. Then we look at the other one of thinking of the kindness of all beings. And then we want to repay their kindness. And we do these other steps that lead us to this Tonglen, this amazing, outrageous, seemingly simple but outrageous, psychologically outrageous practice. It comes out of this marvellous tradition called exchanging self for others, which is verse 7 in these 8 verses. Taking upon ourselves the suffering of others, giving them our happiness. This amazing technique that helps us courageously want to do that. If we could, we would. So finally, achieving this amazing love and compassion, great love, great compassion, which culminates in good achievement. Finding the suffering of others unbearable. And if I don't help them, who will? Never giving up. So we continue on our work. Now the 6 perfections of the Bodhisattva. The first stages are called the Hinayana path, the lesser vehicle, literally, because the goal is an amazing goal, but not the whole goal yet. Then we've got the Mahayana path, the greater vehicle. And then another way to call that one is called that's divided into 2. The Mahayana path and Bodhisattva path is divided into 2. The perfection vehicle, the Paramitayana, the perfection vehicle, referring to this particular part of the Bodhisattvas, which is the perfections of the Bodhisattva, the perfection vehicle, which is all the sutra teachings of Lord Buddha and the Mahayana path. And then there's the Tantra vehicle, Vajrayana, the more extensive, the more radical, advanced, sophisticated level of Lord Buddha's teaching that will help us on the Mahayana path speedily achieve our goal. So here now we're up to the 6 perfections of the Bodhisattva, the later stages of the compassion wing. Having accomplished bodhicitta, we imagine we now continue our practice, perfecting. There's different presentations here, but we'll do the 6th here. So we're perfecting the first 4, which are the perfecting of the compassion wing, and then we're perfecting the last 2, which are the perfecting of the wisdom wing, and the entire path is the perfection of these. The culmination of it all is the combining of these 2 wings, the wisdom wing and the compassion wing. So the first 4 of these perfections, as they call them, are practices done in relation to sentient beings. The last 2, where you perfect the wisdom wing, are where you meditate. You meditate. A bodhisattva is going between these 2. So the first of these 4, they sound kind of simple, as usual. The first 4 are, and they're taught in order of difficulty. First is generosity or giving. The second is morality. The third is patience. And the fourth is what they call enthusiastic perseverance or joyful effort. And they seem sort of like fairly random, don't they, selection of virtuous actions. Why not others, But there's a particular way of presenting this. And each is more difficult than the previous one. So the first, the doorway, as Lama Tsongkhapa says in this wonderful Lamrim text called Songs of Experience. He says, this first one, generosity is the wish-fulfilling jewel with which you can fulfill the needs of all sentient beings. It's the basis of the activity of the bodhisattvas in that it develops a selflessness and undaunted courage to lead all sentient beings to enlightenment. So generosity sounds kind of cute. Oh yeah, be nice, be generous. But it's kind of an amazing practice. This is the way it's taught, The point here on the bodhisattva wing is to benefit others. That's it. The reference point here is totally others. We're totally concerned with others here. We're working on our mind, but others are our reference point. You could say in the wisdom wing, like we're talking, that's a bit like the retreat mode. You back away from others, you leave them alone, you mind your own business, you get out of their heads, get out of their lives, and work on your own mind. Because they're too dangerous for us now, because we're so caught up in our delusions with others, we can't get it clear. So really the best scenario for the wisdom wing is give up sex, drugs, and rock and roll and go to the mountains. Best. You get it really clearly. Now the bodhisattva wing, you come down again and you join all the crazies again. Where the sentient beings are, they're grist for our mill. So here, the first one, generosity. It's the whole attitude that's been trying to cultivate it here in the bodhisattva wing is this sense of responsibility that others are they're my job. It's my job to help sentient beings. It's like you're a mother taking care of all these kids. A mother doesn't have to be taught that they're her job. She just knows it. She knows it. So this is the attitude that a bodhisattva we're trying to cultivate of taking responsibility for sentient beings. So this first one is to have this wish to give them what they need. There's various levels of giving. The very obvious first one, which is meant to be the easiest, but which for us I think is the most difficult, is the giving of material things. The next one is the giving of spiritual advice. The first is meant to be more easy. I think for us the second is easy. We love giving advice. Whether we're qualified or not, that's cheap and easy for us. The first one is really tough. And this is a really, it's a really interesting, just to look at this attitude of generosity, attitude. And this deeply instinctive one, develop this profound instinctive sense of generosity, that when you see the need, you don't think twice, you would give. That's the Bodhisattva one. So, Vajrasattva is renowned for this one. All the great beings have this. But he's renowned for this, you walk in the door, you give something to Rinpoche, it goes into one hand, well, the next person goes in, they come out with it. Like he just channels things, through himself, and they get recycled through him. I remember the stories like somebody gave Rinpoche a pair of shoes. Oh no, sorry, Rinpoche's getting ready for the airplane, and then he comes out of the room, he just said goodbye to one of his students, and he's walking in his socks. He's given all his shoes away. Roger's got to clamber around, get his shoes back. Same with his robes, he's walking out in his petticoat to go to the aeroplane, because he's given his last set of robes. Rinpoche is quite famous for this generosity, and this is truly the attitude of a bodhisattva when you've accomplished it. There's no such thing as mind. And this powerful example of generosity, you've accomplished generosity, actually the perfection of it, according to this level of practice, when you can happily give your body. This is like hilarious to us. It's like seeing the man's mad, giving his body. I was saying Rinpoche gives his body, walk around with half a hand, with his finger somewhere. But he gives his blood easily. I remember hearing all these stories like how he's meditating. He meditates all night, he doesn't sleep. And one time, in Dharamsala, in the middle of the rainy season, all the mozzies everywhere, someone goes in at 3 in the morning, he's attended, give him a cup of tea, and there he is, his head covered with his shirts, with his upper body naked, feeding himself to the mozzies, you hear these crazy stories. It doesn't make sense to our mind. As Lama Zopa says, we can't even give one tiny, tiny drop of blood. It's like mental breakdown, So we practice giving a tiny drop of blood to the mozzies. Good start. But let's start with giving money first. Let's start with giving material things. If we just look at this attitude, we can see we don't have it very comfortably. Some people do. Very easy. In other words, the whole attitude here is to cultivate what we have to practice, because we're not bodhisattvas yet, so we have to practice this, is practicing this attitude that it's my responsibility. This is the tough one. Because we're so caught up in our objects of attachment, we have our husband, our kids, our friends, our this, our that. When we walk past homeless people, we walk past poor people, we walk past people who need things, we don't think it's our responsibility to help them. And of course, you've got to be intelligent about it, you've got to be sort of sentimental. But the attitude we're trying to cultivate, that it's my responsibility. That's what the bodhisattva has. That's what we're trying to cultivate. It's my responsibility. So clearly, you don't have to look around for people who need things. It's right there in front of you. The next door neighbour, the person on the bus, the person in the street, your sister, your kid, the this, the that. But, really, it's a hard practice for us. It's a hard practice for us. I think we always feel poor. We never feel we have enough, which is part of our attachment problem. And we know how hard money is to come by, unless we're mega rich, and even if we are mega rich, we still feel it's hard to come by. Never feel we have enough. And it makes us nervous, especially giving money. Money's the big deal for us. Money's is like the indicator of having in our culture. It's not the number of cows you have, is it, or the number of pounds of rice and grain in the shed in the back. It's the dollars, isn't it? That's just the way we think. Everything's in those terms. So we know it is hard to come by. We do have to count our pennies. It's not easy. But of course, inevitably, we're going to see in our mind, and we start to look consciously and courageously, we're going to see we're really miserly. We don't like giving. The only ones we like to give, and even then it's not always, is to friends, family, the ones somehow we feel are our responsibility. But in other words, in our minds, what we have to try and lessen is this very deep assumption of mine. So it doesn't occur to us that mine can be given to someone else. It's very hard for us. So I think it's really excellent to think about this. Giving things to people. Of course we give gifts. We give beautiful gifts to people sometimes. We do. But it's like noticing them as a need. And seeing it's my job. Homeless people are a good one. Now more and more. Once it was just, you'd only see homeless people in India, We know it, we see more and more homeless people. Of course, we have these 17 different reasons why we shouldn't give them, or we give them food. We give them a banana instead of it. I don't know they want your banana. I think they want your money. It's a really tough practice. Of course, but there you are in India, and they're kind of clinging to you like some kind of, it's like impossible. They're bombarding you on the bus. It's quite hard to keep your common sense and be generous, As soon as somebody's grasping at you, you want them to go away. So it's quite tough. So you've got to be really intelligent. Like the Tibetans, because they're used to this attitude of giving to the poor, giving to beggars. And so on certain, when they go to Bodh Gaya, they'll go to the money changer first and get out their rupees, and come with a pocket full of change, ready to give. So we have to think the same way. Now, I don't know. Why not in the West? I know when I lived in San Francisco, there's plenty of homeless people. Everywhere I go, I'm not trying to show off, I'm just saying, trying to develop this attitude. We've always got something. So you make a decision what you'd like to give. But it's very hard to even do that, because we tend to think, well, it's like money, how do you just give it away? And the most we might give is up to 50 cents. Well, maybe in 1920 you would have given 50 cents. It's a little bit late, 80 years later, 90 years later, 90, whatever. I think, my feeling is now many years I've figured you don't give less than $10. What can you do with $1? It's like insulting. What can you do with $1? Not much. All we've got $1 give you a cup of tea. I think to give no less than $10 has been my policy. Now maybe you've got to go to 20 and 30, because money's changing, isn't it? Money gets difficult. Now the Aussie dollar's gone down, hasn't it? Gone down a few cents. It's only about worth 97 cents now. It was worth $1 in the US. So, you just really think this way, and then you prepare in advance. You're going to walk down the street. I go for walks in the city. I know I'm going to meet the old drunks, the old alcoholics, the old, junkies, the poor people. You're not going to give them a lecture. You're not going to ask them for their, to prove that they're not going to use it for drugs. You mind your own business, Just decide. My job is to be generous, so then we decide. You decide you have a number, and when you run out, you run out. What can you do? You make a decision. But we can afford. We can give. In other words, okay, so I think it's a really powerful practice. It's amazing, I think, this one. Just give plain old money with no strings. We'll walk into Starbucks or cafe and happily spend $10 on a cake and a coffee. That's giving. If you think about commerce, it's very interesting. You give the $10, and we know automatically that Mr. Starbucks will keep 30% or whatever the profit margin is. Well, that's a donation, isn't it? You don't argue and say, I'll only pay for the costs. Give me back my change. No, we're happy to give a donation, but as long as we get a coffee for it. We don't mind giving profit. If you think about it, it's quite true. But we don't want to give nothing something to a beggar for nothing at all. But why not? Very, very good practice. So there's a tricky way. There's different techniques we can do, I think. I think these are great, to help us think generously. Because the first step has to be to want to give. The first step has to be to want to give. Your hand will stay in your pocket if your mind doesn't want. So that's where the first work is. So there are two techniques that I think are brilliant, and one is not, one I made up. I think one's great. It's mine. I own it. The other is just whatever people do. The Mormons, they give 10%. So put a line in your budget called giving. Lots of people do that, and it's really marvellous, And then because the commonest response, the feeling we have is, well, when I get this and when I get my iPhone, because all these costs we have to do now that we never had 5 years ago, like an iPhone, $80 a month, and Foxtel is how much? Monstrous, these costs we just know we have to do. So when I paid Foxtel, when I paid my iPhone, when I paid my iPad, when I paid my this, and when I paid and put my money away, and my retreat money, and my this money, of course, if there's anything left, I'll give. But we know it doesn't work like that. You've got to put it in the budget. And you get used to it. A little amount. It's amazing to do this. It's just a good practice. But another practice, which is my invention, I think it's just brilliant. I love it. You listen. You'll love it too. And you don't have to give a penny. Look how we feel about bills. And look how old-fashioned days you get a check. You don't get checks anymore. You get a plus sign or a minus sign on your internet account, on your statement, don't you? But let's say we have the old-fashioned day that comes through the mail, and you have two envelopes, and you open one and it goes plus, it says check for $5. You feel like you won the lottery, even $5. You see a bill, you get depressed. And no one questions this. We just assume you groan when you have to pay a bill. And we assume you're happy when you get a check. You see my point, don't you? Is this not true? No one would think you're weird. But given that we're trying to cultivate an attitude of generosity, then the most amazing simple practice, and it's so counterintuitive, is that when you see the bill, when you get the bill from the mortgage and the rent and the this, and everything's by bills these days, you practice being excited. You practice, you say, I am so happy to pay this bill. And I'm really serious. It's really simple. It's only a thought, isn't it? It's not complicated. It's so insane. It's so ridiculous. I feel quite proud of this practice. It's a good practice. You think, I'm happy to give. And I swear to you, before you know it, you will actually feel happy, because we know practice makes perfect. And this is profound, because we have to cultivate the wish to give. The fact is, we have to pay the bills anyway. You have to pay the bills. So it's so bizarre when we know we have to pay bills, but we're miserable every time. I mean, haven't we got the message yet? Don't you want to be happy? Well, just decide you're happy to pay the bill. It's so simple, I can't believe it, you know. Isn't it true? Isn't it true? Well done. And it does work, doesn't it? It really does. You give it quite easily, much more easily, because it's this familiarity with wanting to keep it. It really is so astonishing, isn't it? I know, it's amazing. And that's what I have to say, that came for me from working in the prison project. But when it began, I gave it up years ago now to Turkey in Sydney, but when I began it was in 94, 6 or something, whatever it was, I got this letter from this prisoner. And before I know, I was getting 40 letters. And they all want books, or need books. And of course, the letters on my desk, this is the one I'm trying to talk about, to practice thinking it's my responsibility. I'm not saying I do it so well, but it was so real that it was on my desk. The letter wasn't on somebody else's desk, so it was in front of me. I had to answer. I had to give him a book. Where am I going to find a book, you know? I'm getting $400 a month in my pocket to pay my rent and everything when I was working for Mandela. But then I had to develop this attitude. I had to keep... The need was so huge. How could I say no, you know? I couldn't go beg somebody to give me the book. I had to take responsibility. Okay, so I started buying books. Discounts from Snowline, discounts from Wisdom, you know. And somehow, when I'd get a donation, oh, good, I've got some money to buy some books now. I'd be surprised that the attitude would start coming. I'd be happy to use it for the books, because I was so happy to give the books to prisoners. So it was practice, and it started to work. It was really, like you're saying, it was amazing. I had to be happy to give. No donation comes, great. Buy a book. And this is how we raised any money. We would do this and that. I never knew where we got all the money from. I worked it out when we did our final thing when I left. It was like $3-point-something million I'd raised over the 14 years, I forget now. Paid salaries, all these things. Don't ask me how it came, but somehow it came. And that's the point too, because the need of the prisons is so desperate. You just couldn't say no. You just couldn't. You can't afford it. You haven't got the money. You just couldn't. So what we started practicing, this was a big practice, was a need will come, we'd say, we will do it, and then we'll find the money. And this is what I'm going to get to in the fourth step, which is enthusiastic perseverance, joyful effort. We'll get to this one. Perseverance, enthusiasm, confidence. We'll talk about this one there, this attitude. It was all part of the deal here. But it really did work, you know. And then you start getting less worried about it, less fearful of not having enough. Because when we remember right back in junior school, in, the first stroke, the more we think about karma, the logic of it, the nuts and bolts of it, we know that anything we have, even I said a grain of rice, is because of our past generosity. So if whatever we've got now is because of my past generosity, I had better keep being generous. So again, this is where you think of the advantages to yourself. So it reminds you, I'd better keep being generous. For my sake, forget about the sake of others. Because generosity keeps the whole ball rolling, So important. And that has to start with feeling generous, wanting to be generous. And of course you start slow, You can see some people have this automatically. Amazing, such a special quality. Other people have exactly the opposite. Tight, mean, worried, don't want to give. Because, of course, the Buddhist view would be they don't realise that they're rich not because they worked hard, they're rich because of their past generosity. So you'd better keep the whole thing going. Absolutely. Generosity is huge. And that's just material. That's just material thing. But the real attitude behind it, as I'm saying, for the Bodhisattva, is this attitude that it's my responsibility. If it comes in front of you, the homeless person's there, that's your homeless person. They're not in front of somebody else, they're in front of you. So then there's an opportunity for you to take, to give. There it is, right there. You know, give what you can. So important, so powerful. And you practice. And like anything, you get used to it. Like you know, Rosetta said, you just get used to it. It grows in you. Of course, any kind of material thing. And the second one, of course, is meant to be more difficult, giving spiritual advice. Doesn't mean sitting on some throne. Any advice that you've got that's valid advice to help a person's mind is superior giving. From the long-term benefit is superior. It's not. It's easier to give because we're cheap and easy with our words, you know. But the benefit of it is marvelous. Now, as Lama's ever said one time, again, to us it sounds shocking, you can give food to every starving person on this earth. I mean, clearly inconceivable. But he said you give one piece of spiritual advice to one person. That helps their mind. The other people just end up with food, but they're still ignorant, you know. It's still marvellous. But the benefit of giving advice is so superior because that one piece of advice, that one person's mind, can lead them to enlightenment. And then life after life after life, and then the benefit they bring as a result is inconceivable. So that's clearly superior, but obviously you need to do all. The third one is called, it's called giving protection. Giving protection. Saving the lives of creatures, releasing people from prison, from bondage, helping people in this kind of way. Giving protection, they call it. Very interesting. Generosity. Of course, as I said, the criterion of having really accomplished the perfection of generosity is that bodhisattva who cuts his hand off. That's truly showing the realization of generosity. We can start with one drop of blood for the Mozzie. The next one is called morality. Well, the whole entire path is the practice of morality. That's clear. And as we know from the beginnings of the first stages of practice, abiding by the laws of karma, this is exactly the practice of morality, ethics. But there's two kinds. It's very important to understand. The first kind, as we've been talking, I'll do some meditation soon, sorry. I'll do it in a minute. Stop this, I'll do this one, then we'll stop. Is the first stages of morality, which is absolutely crucial, which is the beginning of our development, is the seemingly passive level of refraining from harming. So the more we understand that, which is the one we're working through our purification process, the more we understand the benefit to oneself first of not killing, not lying, not stealing, not this, not that. That's what saves us from insanity. That's what helps us. But clearly, so the direct beneficiary, we can say, of practicing the morality of non-harming, you can say the direct beneficiary is you. You could say, because you stop creating negative karma. But also the beneficiaries are the rats and cockroaches will have a party because you leave them in peace. Aren't they lucky? Aren't sentient beings lucky to have you not harming? So it's miraculous for the world. That's the first level of the practice of morality or ethics. Now we get to a more advanced stage where we now can be around sentient beings. We've got some wisdom because we're not so neurotic anymore. We can see past our own nose. We're not going to harm them. We can actually try to benefit them now. Right now, you see, the way we're at now with all our delusions, of course we try to benefit people, and we do, but sometimes we make a mess, and this is the point. Of course we have to benefit people, but much of the benefit we do now is based upon delusions, based upon attachment. You know, with our kids, with all the ones we're so attached to, we stick our nose in. Attachment gets in the way. It prevents us from seeing clearly how to help a person. We often try to help, and as Lama Zopa says, meaning well is not enough. You need wisdom. And wisdom is what you get as and when you work on your mind, getting rid of the neuroses. Because now, because we're so attached to this one and they're the ones we love, then our attachment to our children, to our loved ones, makes a mess of our compassion. We stick our nose in where it doesn't belong. We're all needy and worried and whop the change when we can't stand, like the old alcoholic brother. We talk about him behind his back. We feel sorry for him. Always giving him advice. We're never accepting him as he is. We're always wishing he'd change. And then we get mad at him because he doesn't take our advice. Back off, Leave the man alone. And that's where compassion gets mixed with attachment. It makes a mess, complete mess. But now the logic goes, as you get rid of all the attachments and the neuroses and you get to the compassion wing, now your compassion can have incredible wisdom. So here we practice benefiting others. And this is nothing cosmic. Benefit people. Help the sick, help the poor, help the fat, help the thin, help the crazies, help the sane ones, help whoever needs helping. Again, the attitude is it's my job. This is what we're trying to cultivate. It's my job. It's my job. Take care of something. To do whatever you can according to your needs, your capacity to help others. See it as your responsibility. Huge one. Very clear benefits and beings. So why don't we do the practice? Unless you have any questions first, then we can do the practice. All right. So let's talk about, quickly tomorrow. Tomorrow first. Tomorrow is one of the, what is it, Sakadawa, isn't it? It's the fourth, what is it called? It's the Sakadawa, the fourth month, the 15th of the fourth Tibetan lunar calendar month. I haven't got my iPad again. And it's said to be one of the very potent days related to the Buddha. This is how they talk about it in the lunar calendar. And it's said it's the day of celebrating the enlightenment of Lord Buddha. And it's said to be a very potent, excellent day for doing virtuous things. And so on these days, Lama Zopa would recommend that we do this little this thing, which you don't need to do, but which you'd like to do, we'll make available, is we take what they call the 8 Mahayana precepts, which means it's just a bunch of vows. We'll talk about it. We'll have to talk about this evening, actually. Instead of meditating, we'll talk about this evening. It's basically living in 8 vows. The regular ones of no killing, no lying, no stealing, no sex, okay? And no drugs, alcohol. And then there's subsidiary ones. No having, usually the strictest way, and we can do it tomorrow, unless you've got some disease or something, have one meal only. Just you can't have onions and garlic and meat and eggs and this kind of food. Have simple food. It's meant to subdue the senses, okay? Must be the 15th. It's the 15th, isn't it? So it's a full moon day. And full moon days are often the days that are said to be very potent energy, and it's a really excellent day to practice, do special practices, And so, no more than one meal, no listening to music with attachment, we won't listen to any music, and no sitting on, this is an odd one, no sitting on high beds. Because in Asian tradition, the height of your seat is a really big deal. The higher you go, the more high you are as a person. So it's hierarchical. So, sitting on high beds makes you feel proud. So we get the meaning of it, that's all. So try to be humble. That's the idea. That's the 8 vows, okay? So we're going to, and the thing is we need to get up before dawn to do the little ceremony together. For those of you who'd like to. When's dawn these days? Have you noticed? Oh, it can't be that late. Right, light by then. When does the sun... Is it really? It's still dark out there, you mean? Oh, that's way too late. That's way too late. We come here at 7:15, it's bright light. Right. Oh, is it? So then, yeah, okay, well, yeah, that's true. No, I'll be getting up at 6 o'clock and it's still dark. Yeah, it's dark. Okay, I think we should come here at 6. Okay, if you'd like to come, we'll talk a bit about it tonight. Won't take much. And then we come at 6, and then we take these vows together. Yeah. Anyone have any? If anybody who was thinking of doing it, you see, sometimes you can take 2 meals. The real one with the food is not to eat after lunch. After midday, you can't eat after midday. This is the thing. But I think it's good to have 1 meal for the day. If anybody can't find that unbearable. We'll do 1 meal, unless you've got some kind of disease. And you can have breakfast and lunch as well, but you can't eat in between. And after lunch, after noon, you can't basically you can't have any food that turns into caca, is the only way to say it. Whatever is if it just comes out as, it is liquid, but it's got components that come out the other one, you can't have that. That's whatever the criteria, and how we would state that, I don't know, except in this way. Okay? That's what, so you can't have like full milk. You can't have, anyway, who gets full milk these days? Nobody. There's no such thing as there. That's having milk with cream on it again. Unheard of. You can't have, fruit juices and things that have got pulp and things. It's just to have liquids. You can drink liquids, Okay. Well, yeah. Yes. I'm about to tell you. That's right. So. What works out bad? Oh, sorry. What? What's this? Oh, it's not entertainment. That's not entertainment, darling. So what's happening up at the stupa? Several thousand people are going to turn up here tomorrow, apparently they say. And they're going to do all these all-day events, all-day trips, to celebrate this day and the stupa and different things are happening. And so Ian, I went up there and had lunch with him yesterday, my old friend who runs it. He asked if we'd like to come. I said, yeah, it would be good for us to go up there. So they have a big procession at 5:30. None of it breaks out hours, darling. None of it breaks out hours. So at 5:30, we'll get up there at the office wherever they are, and then we'll just trail behind. We'll do a big procession around the stupa, and then we'll kind of all peel off and come back here in time for dinner at 6:00. No dinner. No dinner. So then we can stay as long as we like, or we can come back and space out. It's up to you. You can decide. Go up there at 5:30. They're meeting all at 5. There'll be thousands of them, so we'll hang out at the end. We'll just kind of snuck in. Let's just sort of be part of it. Go around and sing a few prayers or something, hold a light. Yeah, it's going to be a light procession. So then as when you feel, you can, because the session will be 7:30, you can hang around as much as you like. Yeah, that'll be, so okay, so you can do if you like to stay, keep in retreat mode, or come back and do your own thing, as you wish. Yeah? Yeah, they talk about all that. They talk about it. All the lamas say on certain these very potent days, the virtue you create, they quantify things. There's like hundreds of millions of times. What does Lama Zoda say? Everyone says something different. Gazillion, okay, gazillion. There you go. Yeah, so you're kind of supposed to get all excited because you just got a lot of return on your investment, merit-wise, like that. Okay. Yes, darling. Yeah, I will. I'll do that tonight. So let's do our wee practice here. Vajrasattva, go to the regrets, So those of you who are new, though, I'm sorry, I have to stop again. Those of you who came today, do you have any questions about this practice? Have you missed all the long details about karma and stuff, and we went through these steps and everything? Or does it sort of make sense to you? Have you done it before? So you're all cool? I presume silence means yes. Okay, good. Okay, so just relax, close your eyes. Because it helps to close your eyes, because we keep it private then, because this is a private activity. I'm speaking the words, but we individually are doing it. And it's between me and me, like we are the boss here. That's a really important point to remember about purification in Buddhism. If we're Christians, it's reasonable enough because I went against God's will, but I have to get God to forgive me. That's really what purification is in Christianity. It's got nothing to do with that here. Buddha would definitely forgive you. He's a nice person. But it's not the point. It's we. These 4 steps, as Lama Yeti said, what purification is the power of the regret. If you did something that's going to cause you suffering, which is compassion for yourself. The power of reliance, Buddha and compassion. The power of the remedy and the power of resolve. It's your mind engaging in these steps. Because your mind, as Lama Zopa puts it, you create, the Lama Yeti said, you create you create negativity with the mind. So you purify it by creating positivity with the mind. So it's truly a psychological process, this purification process. And that it means, in other words, the extent to which we engage in it. Not just sort of, many people who are Buddhists, they've taken the Vajrasattva initiation, they go, oh, I've done my Vajrasattva mantras. Not nearly enough. You've got to do all 4. You must do the regretting. You must do the compassion. You must do the 4th one. You can't just do your masters, but nearly enough. It's got to be engaged in a psychological way, being your own therapist. That's the strength of Okay, so just get your body sorted, nice and straight, relaxed, upright if you're in a chair, back straight, hands in the prayer mudra, in the meditation mudra, whatever you like. Head slightly down, chin tucked in, tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, just near the palate, lips apart, jaw relaxed, eyes down beneath your eyelids, looking as if you were looking along your nose towards the ground. So for about 1 quality minute, maybe 2, just all your attention on the sensation at your nostrils as you breathe. Just focus the mind, get it steady. With the mind inside. So now we do the first chapter. We think, we go through this list of actions, this minimal level of refraining from harming others. We look at these ways we harm sentient beings. And like I've said, if you look at it, it's not that complicated. It's not that many ways you harm people. With our body and our speech. So these 3 main ones of the body, we can add like torturing and abusing, we can add that one to it. This is really quite common. The 3 here are killing, sexual misconduct, and taking. We'll go through these and think. The killing, most of us kill, normal. All the Christian teachings, the Muslim teachings, the Jewish teachings tell us it's okay. Our materialist world says it's okay. It's a bit of a surprise to hear the Buddha suggest that it's not cool to kill any being, because all of them want happiness and don't want suffering. So killing is one of the heaviest ones, because it comes from the strongest motives, to annihilate a being. So, we think, the killing we've done this life, maybe you'll be full of creatures, maybe there's a human being in there we did, and abortion. Killing creatures, the cockroaches, the ones we have such aversions for, we think are so disgusting. Only because of our attachment to a cockroach-free house, therefore aversion to cockroaches, to mice, to rats, lice, all these creatures. We probably kill the mosquitoes, the flies, so many. No one thinks about it. So if we feel we can regret, and the point of regret is because of what motivated those actions, my attachment, my anger, my aversion, then that is what left seeds in my mind that will necessarily, Buddha says, ripen as my future suffering similar to that. This is karma. It's a natural law, he says. So for my sake, I regret from the depths of my heart any killing I've ever done, any harm I've done by killing with this body of mine since the beginning of this time, up until now, since the beginning of this time, with all these seeds that plant on my mind, and I want to get ahead of them before they ripen. So I regret for my sake any action I've ever done with my body kills me since the beginning of time. the actions of sexual misconduct. Different ways of seeing misconduct. Maybe the intense ones, they're raping and brutalising others because of attachment. Perhaps that's something we've done. Maybe in past lives, for sure. Certainly with animals. But here also the one of cheating on partners, harming people this way. So I don't want the karmic consequences. So just look at each one. I forgot the killing one. The karmic consequence of killing. First is that I'll be more in the lower realms. It's the main karma. Then there's the tendency to kill. That seems pretty terrible. Then there's being killed, the experience. I don't want that. Dying young, being sick. This is the experiential result. And then there's the environmental result. All the food, the water, the soil, the veggies, the food, the water, the air, polluted, dirty, don't nourish me, make me sick. Don't want that, for sure. With all these results for every action. So now, sexual misconduct, mainly in relation to the extreme attachment, obsession, compulsive, obsessive attachment to sex. The karmic consequence environmentally is that it's kind of yucky, creepy, kind of yucky, dirty, smelling environments. And we know places like that, and no way we want to live like that. Disgusting. That's the karmic consequence environmentally. Experientially, people cheating on me, my relationship's not lasting. People not trusting. Schisms and divorces and breaks in organisations and families. So painful. Relationships finishing. People leaving me. Like that. Don't want that. I know I don't want that. So I regret. From the depths of my heart. Since the beginning of this time. Any sexual misconduct that have harmed others. Me harming others with my body. Healing, taking what is not given, taking the ungiven, as long as ever says. I don't want the suffering to come from this. Lower realms for sure, if not that, tendency to keep taking. Being stolen from, never having enough, never making ends meet. We know how terrible that is. An environment, poor, poverty-stricken, nothing that we need. Awful. Nowhere one is. Surrounded by poverty. Awful. I regret from the depths of my heart, since beginning this time, any taking I have done with my body. The harming I've done to sentient beings, for my sake. Now the speech, 4 of those. You could think of more, but these main 4 ones. Saying things that aren't true. Look how confusing that is, how it confuses people. I deeply regret any lie I have done. Did I say lying? Yes. Since the beginning of time, to say anything. Because I don't want the karmic result. Lower realms for sure, but the habit to keep lying, so confusing. Being lied to people not trusting. Even if I'm speaking the truth, they don't believe my words. There's nothing more so painful that I the past lying. And being around paranoia and no one to trust and fear and people to fear. Paranoid, unhappy environment. Awful, awful. No nice places. Pleasant, pleasing places. Food doesn't grow properly. Awful. Don't want that. So I regret since the beginning of time. Harsh words. We know how painful that is. I regret from the depths of my heart any harsh words I've ever done to any sentient being since the beginning of time. Because I don't want the result. Lower realms, and then the habit Just awful. Having that happen to me, be around violent words, violent environment, paranoid and fearful. So horrible. Nothing to be trusted. Much fear. Things to be afraid of. Awful. Don't want that. So I regret having essentially been to this way. Rabbiting on about nothing. They call it idle talk. Just meaningless words, just uncontrolled, attachment-fueled, anxious talking. Exhausting to listen to. All of it. Wasting our verbal energy so strong. And one of the consequences of this is, experientially, no one pays any attention to what I say. My words have no power at all. You can see in the world, being born where you just have no one values what you say. You're a meaningless person. Invisible. No one listens. Nothing worse. This is the result of rabbiting on. Again, environmentally, so distressful. Because all the speech ones create paranoia and just unhappy and nothing grows properly. No pleasant places, no pleasing places. So I regret this type of activity. Unacceptable things. I've been talking about people behind their back. Creating so much division. This is where, the karmic result is schisms and divorces and organizations and families splitting up. So much pain by this, from past divisive talk. Absolutely regret all this. I don't want the karmic result. And now the three actions of the mind, just the beginning. Buddha here is just getting us to begin to control the three main delusions, the gross level of attachment, which is strong craving. This one, as I said, drives us. So distressing. Absolutely do not want to be overwhelmed by attachment. Never, no matter what I get is sad and ugly and dirty and doesn't ever last. Nothing is beautiful environmentally. And being overwhelmed and surrounded by mean, miserly people and never having enough. Horrible, awful. Don't want that. Don't want lower realm suffering. Like the spirit realm. I regret. That's in my heart. Then the second one, the gross level of anger, which is this terrible suffering of ill will, never letting go of it and wanting the person to suffer, like a nightmare. I regret this, something that causes me unbearable. I don't want the results. Be dominated by anger, surrounded by paranoia and, fear everywhere. Don't want that. I regret and get some all of the suffering that causes me. And then the gross level of this ignorance, like this narrow-minded, fundamentalist mind, so scared, so fearful, so narrow, so fixed, so concrete. While we're dominated by that ignorance, eye for an eye, racism, sexism, fundamentalism, so painful. Don't want the karmic results of this, being dominated by this, surrounded by these kind of people. Again, fear and paranoia so strongly. So if we've taken vows, we must absolutely regret breaking our vows. Where we've taken, we regret. Regrets in our heart that we don't want the karmic results. Don't want to be separate from the Dharma, separate from our Lama, separate from the teaching. Don't want that. No way. So who can I turn to? Where's the doctor? Who can I rely upon? Who has the methods, has the techniques that I can use to help me change all this, purify this? So we turn to the Buddha. Above our heads, the Buddha in the Bodhisattva aspect. Radiant light body, blissful white light body, wearing these delicious, these delightful Indian sort of silken things, sitting cross-legged on a lotus, holding in his left hand a bell which represents wisdom, in his right hand of his heart. The bell is in his lap. His right hand is in his heart, holding a dorje which represents compassion or bliss. High-pointed crown on his head like a tiara. Hair partially held up in a top knot, decorated with a jewel. The rest down his back. Everything made of light, radiant, blissful, Buddha above our heads. Our Lama, if we had a spiritual teacher, inseparably one with the Buddha. Same thing. My Lama, the Buddha, Buddha, my Lama. Decorated in a beautiful Indian royal style, with earrings, upper arms, wrists, ears, throat, ankles, feet, all decorated beautifully with jewels. So happy to have this doctor, this person I can rely upon. That's the feeling of taking refuge. That's, oh yeah, I take refuge in the Buddha. How boring. Kind of like you're delighted he's got no methods, like you would with a doctor. You've taken poison. You have to know you don't want the karmic results, the results of the poison, sickness, and you have to know the doctor's worthwhile. These two prerequisites. Then you've got refuge. So we have to know we don't want suffering, we're sick of suffering, and we have to be confident the Buddha's got the qualities. And that's up to us to check up. So now the second part of reliance, we rely upon, we need suffering sentient beings, otherwise how can we have compassion? So we have compassion. Those who harmed us and those we have harmed. All of them. All in the same boat. Because we've been harming each other life after life. It's like cosmic joke. So such compassion. I must change. I must purify for their sake. If I don't help them, who will? What is unbearable suffering? It's my job. So now we do the practice. Third step, the remedy. So first we imagine at the brow of Lama Vajrasattva is a white Om, at his throat a red R, at his heart a blue Hong. And then light goes out. We invite all the wisdom beings, as they say, all the actual Buddhas hanging out of the universe. We invite them to come and absorb into our visualization, kind of making it real, So imagine from the blue Hong, light goes out, hooks the energy of all the Buddhas throughout the universe. And all this energy comes back with that light and absorbs into the heart of Lama Vajrasattva, making him even more radiant, more marvelous. And he's now the manifestation of all the Buddhas of the universe. So now he's very happy, wanting to help us, delighted that we want to do this. Sends from his heart this powerful hose of white nectar that arcs around, enters our crown, fills us completely, absolutely forces out, powerful whooshing, whooshes out all the imprints of all the harm we've ever done since the beginning of time with our bodies, all through the lower parts of our body, disappearing into space, like one atom away. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawakama Sutsam Me Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Nutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Siddhi Mempayata Sawakama Sutsam Me Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawakama Sutsam Me Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Full of this nectar. Imagine. Not one atom of negativity of body left. How marvelous. So now, Lama Vajrasattva very happily sends from his heart again this nectar that arcs around, enters our crown, but this time comes up to the top, whooshes up to the top of the body, forcing out through the top parts all the imprints of all the harm we've ever done from the beginning of time with our speech, all this junky speech, disappearing into space, not one atom left. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawakama Sutsam Me Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawakama Sutsam Me Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawakama Sutsam Me Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Mahasamaya Ahum Pe. So now, Lama Vajrasattva very happily sends from his heart, this time light. It comes around, arcs around his laser beams, enter our heart, our crown, and instantly enter us and fill us and remove instantly all the delusions, all the neurosis, ego grasping, all the attachment, all the anger, the pride, all the jealousy, all the nonsense in the mind has been never eon, Buddha says, gone completely, eradicated, as blissful life. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayata Sawakama Sutsam Me Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Pralaya Vajrasattva Cheno Patita Dito Mebawa Sujokayo Mebawa Subokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Membrayata Sawa Karma Sutsame Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Bhutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Pradaya Vajrasattva Cheno Pratita Dito Me Bhava Sujokayo Me Bhava Subokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Membrayata Sawa Karma Sutsame Sitam Shyam Kuru Hum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Bhutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. And now, even the subtlest inference to our omniscience this time, which is actually what you get from practicing bodhicitta and emptiness. So imagine that, even the obstacles to our omniscience, obstacles to Buddhahood, even the subtlest inference, doing these three together, nectar going down, nectar coming up, and the light. Do this. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Pradaya Vajrasattva Cheno Patita Dito Me Bhava Sujokayo Me Bhava Subokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Membrayata Sawa Kama Sutsame Sijam Triyam Kuru Hum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Pradaya Vajrasattva Cheno Patita Dito Me Bhava Sujokayo Me Bhava Subokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Membrayata Sawa Kama Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Pradaya Vajrasattva Cheno Patita Dito Me Bhava Sujokayo Me Bhava Subokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Membrayata Sawa Kama Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Hum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Another fourth step. Determination to change. So we just do it in our own way. We're talking to ourselves, remember? Strong decisions. With confidence that I can change, and we change according to our capacity. So we've taken vows, we reiterate those, absolutely. If we think we're ready to take vows, maybe we want to give preliminary tries. I will never kill, I will never steal, I will never lie, I will never cheat on my partner. These things. If you can say it. Otherwise, think about it, and maybe make a decision to not do it for a month, or try it out for a day or something. Be reasonable. Don't lie to yourself as long as everything. Give yourself make a decision. Not just, I better be a better person. It'll never happen. I better go buy milk. Believe me, you'll never get milk. You must say, I will go buy the milk. It's so clear and obvious. You make a clear decision. We don't think this is enough to change, because we don't understand change. We just think I'm stuck with this, I'm hopeless, I'm no good, I'm miserable, I'm angry, I'm useless. Just wrong, 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 wrong. There's nothing we cannot change in our minds. We just have to decide. Reasonable, according to our capacity. But be brave as well. So make some decisions what you can accomplish. And we're talking here body and speech, and then you can think last, which is the actions that harm others, and then you can think the delusions and neuroses, which are the ones that harm you, Make some decisions about them. A few minutes. was Vajrasattva very happily. Delighted me, dissolves into light, white light, and then absorbs to my crown, merging with my body keeps mind. Lama Vajrasattva, Lama body keeps mind, Vajrasattva body keeps mind, my body keeps mind. And then just kind of space out in a couple of minutes in this blissful, radiant, limitless, clear, bright, energy. Okay. And then relax. Well, I've been telling you all this time he had a white lotus. Look, he doesn't have. Multicoloured. Look. You better brighten up with Technicolor next time. Because Shinrays you get the white one. I've been saying white. It's not multicoloured. Look. These bright coloured silks. All these things. You've got a halo. It's really full on. So you've got Technicolor above your heads now. Any questions before you have dinner? Yes, sweetheart. What do you mean you're not? So you're saying in your mind? No, there's a way. Absolutely, it's perfectly valid to say it in the mind. But it's good to say it verbally, but also it's good in meditation to do it just silently. But it's excellent also to do it verbally because it purifies the speech and the wind. Absolutely. But indeed, when you get deeper meditation, you don't need to say different kind. Absolutely. Something else? Any other questions at any time before dinner? No, okay. All right. So, I've got some publicity here. You knew about my Burma. I'm going to a pilgrimage in Burma. Did you get these cards out there? Were there any outside? They're in the shop. Oh, okay, so fine. They're fine. I didn't know they were there. Okay, good. Thank you, Burma in September. What? Burma? You know, for about 10 years, I did pilgrimages to India, to all the places of the Buddha. They were wonderful, weren't they? They were really amazing experience. So then I was raising money for the prison project, and I stopped running it. So someone else does those now. I don't do that. So I'm also raising money for other projects. So I'm doing pilgrimage to Burma in September. Never been there before. We've got a whole group. I think we can have up to 25. I think we've got about 18 or 20 already. Some more can still come. And it's about 3 weeks. Wonderful. And next year we'll do Sri Lanka as well. We were going to, we cancelled. Huh? Yeah, I know, but then I couldn't do both. I couldn't do that. We're doing next year sometime or when. Anyway, so Burma's in September. I've never been there before, so it'll be nice. That was all. Okay. Think of your dinner different. Don't think of it the same. See it differently. See it as illusory. It looks like real something, some carrots, soup, bread, this, that. And let's just think it's not. Let's think because a habit of eons, it seems so solidly this from its own side, but it ain't. So then kind of be spacey about it. Or let's think instead it's delicious nectar, which we bless with Mahum, and then we offer to all the holy beings, all the beings of the universe, and they all bliss out receiving it. Lama Sangha Lama Chur, Desha Lama Genam Te, Kuki Debo Lama Te, Lama Nama, Chur Pa Bull. Now you can eat fast or slow, doesn't matter. See you at 7:30.